Okay, yay, we are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Global Rules Live. Today we have Dee Hoke with us, and she's going to talk to us about detoxifying workplaces. So I'm excited to have this conversation. Hey, Dee, how you doing?
I'm
And
good. How are you? I'm psyched to be here.
thank you. I'm so glad for you to be here. You already know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to let you go ahead and tell everybody what you do, who you help,
Yeah,
all that great stuff.
sure. So hi everybody. My name's Dee Hoke. So I'm the managing director and founder of the US division of Ignite Purpose. I also own my own coaching company where Fire Within Coaching, and I do personal coaching through that. So my whole world is really revolving around helping people be better and reaching their full potential.
Well, we love that. And you do such a great job at it.
Thank you. Well, I'm blessed to have a great network.
Right? It's so important. Yeah, so this conversation about detoxifying workplaces, I know we talked about some of our experiences, but I know I've had several, toxic environments and being in those places where you're having those types of challenges and stuff like that. So I think we should start at the beginning and kind of just feel into maybe one of your experiences, like what made that situation toxic and how you
Yeah,
dealt with it.
sure. And I think that when people hear toxic, they forget that toxicity comes in so many different ways. It can come in discrimination, it can come in bullying, it can come in harassment, but it can also come in micromanagement, gaslighting, and jealousy. And I think that we don't talk about the latter three, the micromanagement, gaslighting, and jealousy. I myself have been in a situation where I really should have been a little further within my career, but was not because, of just certain stories, because we all tell ourselves different stories, right? That's how we get through. We tell ourselves a story. So I'm not sure what the narrative was, but I know that it was for me, I had a really hard time getting my career moving. And a lot of it also, for me, I was toxic in a lot of different ways because when you have a toxic work environment, you you become toxic, especially if you give into it, if you want to belong, you want to, be a part of what, the organization is. And if the organization is toxic, you're going to end up being toxic. And then, 20 years later, you're going to wonder, what are you doing? So I think it's really important to start with that, identifying that work, those workspaces that could look that way. I know for myself as well, because I'm not immune to toxicity, right? So when I feel like I'm out of control or I feel like self-sabotage coming on, I end up micromanaging situations. And I do that because I feel like there's a loss of control. So I try to gain the control back by micromanagement. And so that's why what we do at Ignite Purpose and a lot of the work that I do is stems around introspection, stems around figuring out what part of you is toxic, and then we can worry about the environment.
I think that makes so much sense, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I've always felt like it starts from within us.
Mhm.
Because if we're not doing the work on ourselves and our own personal development, then how can we be any different in the world?
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? So it's yeah. Well, so what's going on inside? It shows up on the outside.
It
So
does. And
yeah.
even if you're someone who says, oh no, I can hide my feelings really well,
Mhm.
can you though, can you really, because you can feel it, you can feel when someone doesn't like you,
Yeah.
you can feel when someone is, being unfair to you, you can feel that stuff. And that's where the gaslighting comes into play as well, because then we start thinking, oh my goodness, why don't they like me, I've been doing this, or I'm thinking this way and they're showing me that it's not, and it ends up coming across as gaslighting.
Mm. Yeah. Gaslighting. That's a thing. That's
It's a big
really a
one.
thing.
And a lot
Yeah.
of times it's not intentional.
Mhm.
And that's why the introspection is so important, because it's not intentional. No one sets, well, I mean, I would hope that no one sets out and says, I'm going to gaslight this person. It's the behaviors and the actions that make it look like you intended to gaslight that person, even if that wasn't the intent.
Yeah. Even if it wasn't the intent. Yeah. I want to track back to
Mhm.
micromanagement just for a
Yeah.
second. Um, because I remember having a situation, coming out in the healthcare industry, working in a hospital, you work with so many different people, right? Different departments, all that good stuff. But it's like sometimes the micromanaging will come in your own space with somebody who is equal to doing what you do, basically.
Yep.
They're an equal employee. And
Hmm.
it's like, I don't know if they realize that they're doing that, if that's
Right.
just who they are.
Right.
I had a situation like that, and I
Yep.
don't think I handled it too well
Right.
because of what I
Right.
said to this person. But
Right.
it's like you're treating me worse than our own supervisor. You're talking
Right.
to me worse than she talks to
Right.
us. So it's like,
Yep.
how do we really know, or how do we really identify when some toxicity is going on?
Right.
Like, what
I
are the
love
signs?
that example. No, I love that example because I have honestly been, again, introspective, so very honest. You have to be completely honest with yourself. I've been on both sides of it, right? I've been that employee that is micromanaging other employees at the same level. I've also been on the opposite side as well, and I've been micromanaged. And to be honest with you, I don't like either of them, because as I don't want to micromanage people and do it, and tell people how to do their jobs, because then that stunts their creativity, that stunts their growth. But I also know that same for me, right? Like, I need to have opportunities for growth. I need to have opportunities for creativity. And if I'm being micromanaged, I can't do that.
Right, right. I agree. I don't think that it's a good thing. I don't know if people are always aware, but I think you know who you are and how you handle situations. So it's hard to say, well, maybe she didn't know she was doing that, but she knew.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's important to remember perspective as well. So when I look at a situation, I'm looking through the lens of my own experience, my own self-sabotage, my own trauma, my own even good experiences. That's what I'm looking through that lens. So you're going to look at a situation different than I am, because you're looking through your lens. And that's where that empathy comes into play, where if I want to understand you, or I want to have a meaningful connection with you, then I need to have empathy for you and how you're feeling about certain situations.
hmm. Yeah, and that doesn't really come into play too much if if you really look at certain situations. We don't really see that empathy. We don't really see that people are caring about how we feel
Right.
based on what they've said or what they've done and things like that. Which brings me to like a part of a workplace environment where there's favoritism, and you can
Mhm.
see it, and it's like, well, we're not aware if our manager, our supervisor knows that this is going on, or how our perspective on this, but this is what I can see.
Yeah.
Because if I'm in a department, and there's different areas in this department, why does it feel like we're all separate? Because
Right.
you're showing more attention
Right.
to one part of it than our part of it. And so
Yeah.
we have challenges and things that are going on over here that you know nothing about, because you're not
Mhm.
showing any kind of attention to it, or
Right.
anything that, like, you're even interested in what's going on over here. But we have a high turnover rate over here. Do you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
are you seeing these different things? But
Yeah.
when you have this favoritism stuff going on, and you're just paying attention to, the people that you care about more, because
Right.
whatever. But it's like, we're totally neglected. So how should we perform? How can
Yeah.
we perform at a higher level when we feel like we're neglected? You know?
Yeah. And those situations are so tough,
Yeah.
because if you don't have the right leader in place that will take, that can separate and do that introspection and say, I recognize that this and this is something that I can do better at. So if you don't have that leader, and you go to that leader and you say, hey, I see that there's favoritism, then you might hear, well, you're just being too sensitive. Or
Mm-hmm.
you might hear, well, no one else has complained about this, or, a lot of different things. And what that tells me is that it's just not a psychologically safe environment. So if I cannot go to you as my leader and say, I am feeling this way, regardless of whose fault it is, regardless, there's feelings here and I need help working through these feelings. So if my leader can't give that to me, provide that safe space for me, provide that empathy for me, then it's going to continue to be toxic.
Yeah, it's going to keep going on. And like you said, when people, if they are saying that, okay, well, nobody else is bringing this up, well, that's because we're talking about it amongst ourselves. We're not
Exactly.
bringing it to
Rumors.
you.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
it
see,
ends up
that's
being
again.
rumors and
Yeah.
gossip and everything else. And maybe they're not telling you because
Mhm.
you're part of the problem.
Right.
And that's
Exactly.
okay. That's okay if you are.
Mhm.
It's because that self-awareness is the first part, is recognizing, hey, what's Taylor Swift say? Me, I'm the problem, it's me. It's always you. You always have to look inside you first. So as a leader, you have to do that self-work and you have to recognize that you have biases. We all have biases.
Yes.
And until you can recognize that, yes, I have a bias towards this person or I have a bias towards this group, until you recognize that, then your environment's going to continue to be toxic.
That's true. It all starts with self. So, how can leaders, from your perspective, how can leaders basically cultivate a culture where there's high performance, but there's
Mhm.
innovation and collaboration, like bring it all together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always subscribe to the Hive culture, and that's what we follow at Ignite Purpose as well. And with the Hive culture, you have psychological safety as a foundation, and then you have everyone has a shared purpose. Everyone has their role. So if you look at bees, right, you have your worker bees, you have maybe your ones that get honey, you have, everyone has their job, and then the queen is sort of just kind of monitoring everything and making sure that everything's working the way it needs to. And that's really that's really what a hive is about. And when you translate that to organizations, is it's creating an environment where people feel comfortable making mistakes, creating an environment where people feel comfortable saying, I don't think that's right. An
Mhm.
environment saying to a leader, like, hi leader, you said this and this doesn't go, this conflicts with our mission. And being able to have those questions and really everybody holding each other responsible, and having that mutual accountability. And you can't have that if people are afraid to have conversations, because it's always about the conversations, communication. That's how we get through things, is having honest communication. And if you have an environment where, we'll say, politics goes over people, well,
Mm.
I'm not going to have a communicate. I'm not going to talk with my leader because my leader doesn't care about me, right? Because they're more concerned about politics. So that's why in a hive culture, the politics are out. It's about the people. It's about people performance and how your people show up, and creating that environment where everybody thrives, not just, your high performers.
I love that concept because it just, it enables us to show up as ourselves and not feel like we're just going to be like you're going to be condescending, or like you're going to come at us if we make a mistake,
Right.
if we're not a certain way, and we're not always wondering who likes who and all this, and it's just, it gets so
How fear
crazy.
based.
I know, it gets so crazy. So I love that concept. I think that is a great way for that to work, as far as bringing that culture together, so that you
Yeah.
can innovate more, you can do more collaborative projects,
Right.
and and to be a success because you're performing at your higher level. You know.
Exactly. And when you don't have that psychological safety, or you don't have that environment What you have is the opposite of that is a blame culture and a hustle
Mm.
culture, and those cultures where they put competitiveness first, where they put productivity first. And those environments are psychologically damaging to employees and to leaders as well, because as a leader, if you don't instill this in there, right, instill the Hive culture, and you do a blame culture instead, well, that's going to cause you a lot of stress as a leader, because you're going to be putting out fires all the time trying to figure out who's doing what, and then you're going to end up spending more money on hiring people, and instead of doing the work and then fixing it and doing the human-centric cultural transformation.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, girl. I'm telling you, it can get so deep with it. You know what
It
I
is.
mean?
It is.
It really can. And as we step into leadership too, because we're
Mhm.
CEOs and we're doing
Yep.
all these different things,
Yep.
how can we foster that psychological safety within our own teams? Because I know that a lot of people are at the level where they are building out their teams.
Yeah.
You want to have that culture created, because you want everybody to not love what they do, but just be really invested in what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
So, because you want to
Exactly.
take the company to another level, you don't want to stay where you are. The goal is to always go to a higher
Mhm.
level.
Yeah.
So,
And you
yeah.
do that through human connections. And that's something that we kind of glossed over it. And I think the pandemic blew it wide open, right? Is as humans, we're social beings. We need each other. We need support from each other. We need to, we need that community, that tribe mentality.
Mhm.
And when we do that, we're better together when we do that. When we do that, when we're lifting up the next person rather than tearing people down, that makes us better inside. And that also makes it so we're living our best selves. So again, I know I sound like a broken record, but start with yourself. Do the
Mhm.
self work, figure out, really get to know yourself, and know that it's hard work and you'll probably cry and it'll probably be, feel really bad for a little bit. But at the end, when you can look back and look at situations like myself, I can look at my toxic situations, whether I was the toxic element or whether someone else was the toxic element, I can actually look at it now as a gift. Where before I couldn't look at it as a gift, right? It was because it hurt too much. But
Yeah.
now I can look at it and I could say, you know what? I'm accountable for my actions. Other people are accountable for their actions, but that's not my concern. My only concern is that I'm accountable for my actions, and I decide if I want to react the same way in a similar situation or if I want to be better.
Yeah, because we can't control other people at the end of the day. We can only be
We
responsible for
try.
ourselves. Oh yeah, we can try, but it's just not gonna happen. It's like, listen, we have to look at ourselves and figure out what we're gonna do next, how we're gonna improve, all that stuff, because we are in control of us, and that's it.
Absolutely. That's the only thing, the zone of control or circle
Yeah.
of control, right? Like you can only control those. And when you try to control other elements, when you try to control the world around you, that's when you get in trouble. Because again, you're looking at the world around you from your perspective. Other people don't have that same perspective. So when you try to cram other people into your perspective, that's when that toxicity happens.
Yep, that's when it gets funky.
Mhm.
So
It does
true.
get funky. It does get funky. And I've been on both sides and both sides stink.
Mhm.
It really, again, broken record, but coaching changed my life.
Yeah.
Being able to look at situations from a non-emotional perspective and really look at them from hey, I made a mistake and that's okay. Or
Mhm.
I wasn't treated right and that's okay because I can learn from it. And
Mhm.
now I know the red flags, right? I know the red flags.
Right, you know them because you've gone through it. You've gone through it, and you recognize what those red flags are. So
Yep.
talk to us a little bit more about your coaching, like, because I know that you
Yeah.
help people with their self-work, right?
I'm sorry?
You help people with their self-work, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I do coaching on a few different levels.
Mhm.
So through Ignite Purpose, I do executive coaching, where I get to work one-on-one with the leaders, which I absolutely love.
Mhm.
Because for me, when you are working with a leader who really wants to be their best, they want to be at their full level. They want to have a high performing Hive culture. So when you have those type of leaders are easy to work with, right? Because they want it, right? They want to be better. But when you have those leaders that, maybe they need a little more convincing, maybe they're more skeptical, those are the leaders that I really do enjoy working with, because those are the leaders where we do that deep work. We do that deep work where we're doing internal audits, of ourselves. We're doing internal audits of ourselves. We're looking at situations within our culture. We're looking at how we handle those situations and what we could do better, and really working on what holds you back from being the best leader that you can be. And we just, go through the coaching, we go through talking, we go through different, mechanisms, tools that we have, and we just kind of meet them where they're at, and then we bring them to that next level. But again, they have to be willing to do that.
Right.
So,
Right. I mean, yeah, it's none of it works unless you're willing to do the work.
no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And what my dad used to say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Mhm.
That's no different than humans, right? Like, I cannot make you do anything. I can plant seeds, I can ask you questions, I can give you all of the tools, but at the end of the day, it's your decision to be better. It's your decision of what you want to do with the tools and the seeds and everything else. That's you
Yeah.
that makes that decision. And for me, and that's why I'm an empowerment coach, that's really empowering.
Mhm.
It's especially if you're someone who maybe has felt the toxic environments for so long, and then you realize, wait a minute, I'll have my power back, please. And then when you take
I
that
love
power
that.
back, it's empowering, because you're like, wow, I look at these situations and it's like, oh my goodness, I would definitely not handle a situation like that again, like the same
Mhm.
way. Yeah. So for me, again, it's all about asking the hard questions. Coaching, any effective coaching is not easy. And it's not easy because it's hard work. It's hard work to look at your ugly parts. It's hard work to
Oh,
say,
yeah. I know.
I know you know.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it is. It's hard work to look at your ugly side. It's hard work to say, wow, like that action isn't in line with who I am and who I want to be.
Yeah. I think
And
that's the most scary part for people is to
yep,
look at the ugly side,
it is.
They may be afraid of what they're gonna see, but you
Right.
know what it is. Everybody
But it's
knows
there.
they know what's
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah. I mean,
so
you might be afraid of what you're going to see, but it's already inside you. So why not confront it and then decide what to do with it? Take those situations, those ugly parts, and figure out, how you could be better, and then find a gift that you get from it. And for me, my gift is the fact that I learned. I learned how not to be in certain situations, and I learned how I can pivot and adjust certain things.
yeah. Yeah, you made a decision and
Mhm.
you wanted to improve. And I think that's where it all starts. We can all be better humans,
Oh,
every
yeah.
day we can do something to be better.
Every
So
day. Yeah.
so let's do it, right?
That's what I say. Let's just do it. Let's just do it.
Do it. Oh my goodness. So Dee, tell us, what do you have coming up, coming out? What's
Yeah.
going on in your life right now?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked, Cheryl. So the first thing that I want to say that we have coming out is a joint class that Miss Cheryl and I worked on, and it covers a lot of the information that we discussed today. So it's called Creating a Culture for Better Human Connection. And the basis of it is really showing our leaders what human connection looks like. Because as much as we need human connection, a lot of humans don't know how to connect with other humans.
Right.
So we, in our class, we talk about what meaningful connections really means, and talk about hive cultures and talk about psychological safety, but we also go into the toxic elements. We go into that gaslighting. We go into the blame culture. We go into all of those toxic elements, and then we also give you solutions for those toxic elements. So that's one of the classes that you and I have had together. So that's going to be available on our Ignite Purpose app, which I will, once we have all the marketing and everything, I'll send that out. Also, I have a 6-week coaching program that I made with a life coach named Amanda Jacob. So we do a app course, it's all about how to change your narrative. How to change your personal story and how to overcome past experiences. So it is an app course. It is set up for 6 weeks, but you can take it. It's self-paced. And then starting in January, we'll have life coaching workshops that'll be based on that course. So that's some of the stuff that I have going on. And of course, I have my podcast as well.
Awesome. Yes, as you really want to connect with Dee, she's so amazing. She's so smart. Like she knows, she really knows what she's doing. And I just love her. Like
I love you back.
she's so great. Like you really want to connect with her. I put the links. Yeah, you gave me the links. I put the links down for you guys to connect. Also reach out to her on LinkedIn. Of course, she's there hanging out like the rest of us, which is great. I really love doing this project with her because, and you guys are gonna love the reflection part of it. I think you'll get so much out of that, like those exercises to really do that introspection that we were talking about, like looking inside of yourself and coming up with your own solutions. Oh my gosh, like
Mind
priceless.
blowing, right? I
Right.
know we were taking the course, like, because we created the course. So as we're doing it, we're not going to give anything to anyone that we're not going to do ourselves. So,
Yeah.
Cheryl and I did the work throughout, doing it. And it was like, man, like we just wrote a really awesome course.
Right. And it just got better and better. So
Exactly.
you're gonna love it. Yes, you guys are going to love it. All right. Well, this is it. Do you have any final words for our guests?
Well, first, I just want to shout out to Melanie Richards because she's the one that introduced us and
Yeah.
she's absolutely amazing. So just shout out Melanie. Also, I would just like to remind everybody that you hold your own power, that you make the decision of what your life's going to look like. You hold that power. Don't give your power to anybody else. Don't give it to an organization. Don't give it to a spouse. Don't give it to anyone else. It belongs to you and you have that control. And if you decide that you want a second chance and you want to be better, then be better. And you have tools that can help you be better. You have people that care about you and care about humans in general. And once we're all at our highest level, can you imagine the world that we'll have?
Ooh, can you imagine that? Mm. Yeah, your next level awaits you. I'm just saying.
Yep. Mic drop now.
Right? It's there, it's waiting on you. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, whether you were here live or catching the replay. Really appreciate it. And we're going to get out of here. So take care and we'll see you next time. All
Bye.
right.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you.